What if I told you that the reason your body isn't responding the way it used to, why those firm, proud mornings have slowly faded, has less to do with age and everything to do with something as simple, as overlooked as a spoonful of nourishment before bed? Now, I know that might sound too good to be true, but over the past 35 years as a physician specializing in men's health, I've seen it time and time again. Men in their 60s, 70s, even late 80s, rediscovering strength, sensitivity, and that old familiar spark. And often it starts not with a prescription, not with a pill, but with a quiet change to their evening routine. There's something deeply personal about losing your edge. It's not just about sex, though that's part of it. It's about how you carry yourself, how you feel walking into a room, and whether you still recognize the man staring back in the mirror. I've had men in my office, proud, accomplished men, lower their voices and say, "Doc, it's like I've faded down there. I'm not sure who I am anymore." My name is Dr. Edward. I practice urology and men's health right here in Greenville, South Carolina, for over 3 decades. And while I've since retired, I've never stopped helping men because I know what's at stake. I know how isolating it can feel to lose what once came so naturally. And I know how powerful the return can be when the body begins to awaken again. So today, I want to share something with you. Not a miracle cure, not a gimmick, but a natural bedtime habit that's helped thousands of older men restore their blood flow, rebuild their energy, and regain the confidence they thought was long gone. Just one spoonful, taken the right way, at the right time. That's all it took for many of them to start noticing changes, real, felt changes. And as we go along, I'll explain exactly how it works, why this habit impacts blood flow to the penis specifically, why it nourishes rather than forces, and why so many men say they wake up not just firmer, but more alive. But before we go any further, take a second and subscribe to the channel. Click the bell so you don't miss what's coming next, because it only gets more interesting from here. And do me one more favor. Write in the comments below which city you're watching from. I read every one, and I always love knowing where my brothers are tuning in from. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is in that spoon? And why does it seem to help so many men over 55 feel better where it matters most? That's the beautiful part. You won't need to travel far or spend much. The ingredients are likely already in your home. And when you take them together, they don't just help your blood move better, they help your body remember how to function. But let me warn you, we're not going to rush into the secret just yet, because you deserve to understand why it works, not just what it is. So I'll start with a story. A patient named Harold. He was 69 when he came to see me. Quiet, respectful, the kind of man who still held the door open and said, "Sir," without thinking about it. But you could see in his eyes, he wasn't okay. He told me he still loved his wife, still felt desire. But when it came time to act, nothing happened. "It's like my body gave up on me," he said, "and I don't know how to get it back." What Harold didn't know, and what most men don't, is that the body never truly gives up. It just slows down. It waits. And with the right support, it can come back online faster than you'd imagine. In Harold's case, we didn't start with a prescription. We started with something he already had in his pantry. A natural combination, taken each night before bed. A spoonful of something warm, nourishing, and powerful. Within 2 weeks, he was waking up with sensations he hadn't felt in years. Within a month, his wife had pulled me aside and said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." And we will talk about what that spoon contained. But first, you need to understand what's actually going wrong inside the body after 55, and why this method, though simple, speaks directly to the root cause. So stay with me, because in just a moment, we're going to unravel something most men never hear from their doctor: the quiet, gradual shift inside your blood vessels that makes everything downstream harder, slower, or completely unresponsive. This isn't about quick fixes. It's about awakening the body's natural systems in a way that feels real, safe, and deeply effective. And once you understand the real problem, you'll understand why that nightly spoon might just be the best thing you've ever done for your manhood. Are you ready? Let's begin. Now, before we talk about what's inside that spoon, let's take a slow walk into what's really going on down there and why so many good men like you, are finding it harder to respond the way they used to. See, most men think it's just aging, that your body is wearing out, that it's supposed to get harder to stay firm, to feel desire, or to finish what you started. But that's only part of the story. And frankly, it's the laziest answer out there. The truth is far more hopeful. Because what's really behind this slow decline isn't age, it's blood. More specifically, the slow breakdown of healthy blood flow in the most sensitive parts of your body. Your penis isn't failing, it's suffocating. Quietly, gradually, like a river that used to rush with power, now trickling through a stream bed clogged with stones and weeds. Let me put it in a way that makes it crystal clear. Imagine your circulatory system as a complex system of pipes, big ones, medium ones, and some so small they make a thread of hair look thick. Now, when you were younger, those pipes were clean, flexible, responsive. When you got aroused, blood rushed in like a fire hose, filling every cavern of tissue in seconds. That's what made those erections firm, fast, and reliable. But over time, because of stress, diet, inflammation, and inactivity, those pipes start to stiffen. The walls narrow, the lining thickens, and suddenly, the very system designed to deliver blood to your penis can't. It's like trying to power a machine with half the voltage. Everything still works, but not with the force it needs. And here's where it gets even more important. The arteries leading to your penis are among the smallest in your entire body. That means they're the first to feel the effects of slow circulation. Not your heart, not your brain, your manhood. That's why erectile issues are often the earliest warning sign that your body is getting clogged. But let's go deeper, because it's not just the blood vessels. It's what's in the blood and what the tissues around are doing. As we get older, our bodies become more acidic. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but in a man's system, that acid buildup creates a low-grade state of tension. It's like rust forming inside your pipes, corroding the lining of your vessels, hardening tissues, and turning smooth muscles into rigid tubes. And when that happens, two devastating things occur. Your blood can't flow quickly enough to the penis. Even when it gets there, your tissues can't hold it in. The result? Soft erections. Or worse, no response at all, even when your mind is fully engaged. And I've seen this too many times to count. Men who feel desire. Men who want to be close to their wives or partners. But when the time comes, nothing. And the shame that follows is cruel. It's quiet, but it eats at your confidence like rust eats through steel. Now, here's the most important thing I need you to hear. It's not your fault. I want to say that again. This is not your fault. You didn't fail. You didn't break. Your body just hasn't been given what it needs to function the way it was designed. And that's the part no one tells you. Because while pills and procedures focus on forcing the penis to respond, they don't address why it stopped responding in the first place. They're like pouring high-pressure water into a hose with a kink. Sure, something might come out the other end, but the problem is still there. Still blocking, still restricting, still silently getting worse. But here's the encouraging news. Just as blood flow can fade, it can return. Tissues that have gone quiet can reawaken. Sensitivity that feels distant can spark again. You just have to understand what's blocking the system and what gently clears it. Now, there's one more layer to this problem I want to share with you before we move into the solution. Because it's one I see in nearly every man over 55, no matter how healthy they think they are. And that's inflammation. Chronic, Low-grade inflammation is what I call the silent smother. It doesn't yell. It doesn't show up on your skin. But inside, it's eroding the function of every system that supports healthy erections, especially nitric oxide. Now, if you've never heard of nitric oxide, just know this. It's the chemical spark that tells your blood vessels to open wide and let the floodgates in. Without it, nothing works. Nothing flows. Nothing responds. But guess what inflammation does? It blocks nitric oxide. Like putting wet leaves on a campfire, it smothers the signal before it can even reach your manhood. So let's recap gently because I know this is a lot to take in. Your blood vessels are narrowing from the inside out. Your tissues are tightening because of excess acid. Inflammation is stealing the signal that used to light up your entire system. No wonder things feel dull. No wonder you wake up with less strength or none at all. Your body is trying to fight through mud with no tools to clear it. But just because the river has slowed doesn't mean it's dried up. And that's why what I'm about to share next. The spoonful before bed matters so deeply because it doesn't just treat the symptom. It goes after the blockages, the acidity, the inflammation, and slowly, gently begins to reverse them. This is where things get exciting because the story you've been told, that the best years are behind you, isn't just wrong. It's harmful. And in the next few moments, I'll introduce you to one of the simplest, most nourishing bedtime habits that has helped hundreds of men in their 60s and beyond wake up feeling stronger, fuller, and more like themselves again. Are you ready for the next step? Let's talk about what goes into that one spoon and what happened to one of my most skeptical patients when he finally gave it a try. Harold came back 3 weeks after we first spoke, and I could tell something had shifted even before he said a word. He sat down, leaned in, and smiled. Not a forced smile, but one of those quiet, self-assured grins that tells you a man feels like himself again. "Doc," he said, "it's working. I don't know how, but it's working." Let me take you back a bit, because Harold's story is important. Not because it's unique, but because it's so common. And because what helped him can help you too. He was 69 when he came to see me, recently retired, still sharp, still kind, but worn down by a problem he couldn't talk to anyone about. His words were slow at first, a little embarrassed. "I still want to be close with my wife, but I don't feel like I have it in me anymore." We ran the usual tests, testosterone, cholesterol, blood pressure, and everything came back within range. "Doc, how can everything be normal, but I still feel like this?" It was his question that brought me back to something I'd seen many times before. "Harold," I said, "your problem isn't in the numbers. It's in the flow." That's when I gave him the first step, a natural method, just one spoonful before bed that works not by pushing or forcing, but by gently restoring the body's ability to circulate blood, balance acidity, and nourish the very tissues that have gone quiet. I call it the evening spoon, and here's how it works. 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil mixed with a small pinch of baking soda, stirred into warm water with the juice of half a lemon, taken right before bed. Now, I know, that doesn't sound like a miracle, does it? But when you understand what each part does inside your body, you realize this isn't a miracle. It's science finally applied in the right way. The olive oil is your foundation. Rich in monounsaturated fats, it helps soften blood vessels, lower inflammation, and encourage healthy cholesterol production. But it also contains a compound called oleuropein, a natural nitric oxide booster that supports the very spark needed for blood to move into the penis. Then comes the baking soda. Just a pinch. That's enough to help neutralize excess acidity in your system. The same acidity that stiffens vessels, dulls sensation, and blocks nitric oxide from doing its job. Baking soda brings balance. It tells your body, relax. The pressure's easing. The pipes are open again. And then there's the lemon. It may seem small, but its vitamin C is critical. It protects the endothelial lining of your arteries and enhances nitric oxide production. More importantly, It cleanses the liver, your body's hormone command center, so your testosterone can move freely, unbound, and available to do what it was made for. Altogether, this simple blend sends a message to your system. It's time to circulate again. It's time to heal. Now, Harold didn't believe it at first. A spoon of oil, he said, eyebrows raised. But I told him, don't underestimate what happens when you give your body the right conditions. He followed it faithfully. Every night. No fanfare. Just a spoon, a cup, and a little quiet time before bed. By the second week, he noticed his sleep improving. His energy in the morning was lighter. But more than that, he felt a subtle warmth in his lower body, an aliveness he hadn't felt in years. By the third week, that warmth became firmness, the kind that comes in the early morning without trying, the kind that lets you know your body is waking back up. But that was only the beginning, because what Harold experienced next, and what so many other men have told me, is that once the blood flow returns, so does something deeper. Confidence. He started walking taller, laughing more, holding his wife's hand again without feeling like he had to explain anything. And that, my friend, is the real goal here. Because restoring blood flow isn't just about the physical response. It's about reclaiming your place in the world. Feeling like a man again. Not trying to relive your 20s, but living fully at 60, 70, and beyond. Now, let me make one thing clear. The evening spoon isn't a magic bullet. It works gradually, but it creates the conditions your body needs to regenerate, to restore, to circulate again. And what's beautiful is that you can start tonight. No prescription, no appointments, just a few simple ingredients and a willingness to take that first small step. But I said this was only the beginning. Because while Harold's body responded beautifully to the evening spoon, there was one more element that took his progress even further. Something I discovered years ago with another patient, and it involves a second, equally powerful natural ingredient, applied not through the mouth, but through the skin. And I'll be honest with you, the results were so surprising, even I didn't expect what happened next. I'll tell you that story in just a moment. Because what came next, well, let's just say it changed everything for one man who thought he was beyond hope. I met Daniel on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. He was 72, a retired carpenter with a handshake like sandpaper and eyes that had seen a lot of life. But on that day, his confidence was thin, like the last coat of varnish on an old chair. He sat across from me and said, "Doc, I don't know what's going on. It's like my body forgot how to feel." He wasn't just talking about erections. He meant sensation, warmth, connection. Even when he touched himself, he said it felt like his body was distant, as if someone else had taken up residence in the lower half of him. Now, I've heard this before, many times in fact, and I knew immediately what we were dealing with. Not just low blood flow, but stagnation. A deeper kind of blockage, not just in the arteries, but in the tissues themselves. And that's where we turn to the second method, one that, to this day, remains one of the most effective and overlooked remedies I've ever used in practice. Castor oil. Yes, you heard that right. The thick, golden oil your grandmother might have used for stomach aches. Turns out, it holds a hidden power for men over 60. Not taken by mouth, but applied directly to the body. Because what castor oil does isn't cosmetic. It's biological. When Daniel first heard this, he looked at me with a bit of disbelief. Castor oil? You mean that old stuff from back in the day? I nodded. That's the one. But let me show you how we're going to use it. I taught him a very specific routine. Before bed, 3 nights a week, he'd take a generous amount of castor oil, about a tablespoon, and warm it gently. Not hot, just enough to feel like a comforting touch. Then, using soft, circular motion, he'd massage it into his lower abdomen, just below the belly button, along the inner thighs, and lightly over the groin. Not the penis itself, but the areas around it. Then he'd place a warm compress over the area, either a heating pad on low or a towel soaked in warm water, and lie still for 20 minutes. No distractions, just stillness. Breath. Attention. Why does this matter? Because castor oil penetrates deeply. Unlike other oils that sit on the skin, castor oil carries a compound called ricinoleic acid, a natural anti-inflammatory and circulatory stimulant. It moves through the skin into the fascia, the soft connective tissue where inflammation hides. It softens collagen, breaks down scar tissue, and, perhaps most importantly, it restores microcirculation to tissues that haven't seen good blood flow in years. This is especially important for older men, because over time, even subtle inflammation from past infections, injuries, or surgeries can leave hardened, rubbery tissues beneath the skin. These tissues block blood, dampen sensation, and reduce elasticity. Castor oil gently breaks that cycle. Daniel was skeptical, but he was also desperate. So he did it 3 times a week, just as I showed him. By the second week, he noticed something unexpected, a sense of warmth returning to his thighs. Not heat like a fever, but circulation. A pulse. A quiet awakening. By the 4th week, he said something I'll never forget. "Doc, it's like my body is remembering me." And it wasn't just the physical. His wife noticed he was sleeping deeper, smiling more. He said he felt more grounded, more connected. "It's hard to explain," he said, "but I feel like a man again." That's the power of this method. Not because castor oil is magic, but because it unlocks systems that have been asleep for years. It clears what the body no longer needs: stagnant lymph, hardened tissue, old inflammation, and invites blood and sensation to return. Now, here's the part most men miss. You have to give it time. This isn't a one-night miracle. It's a process, like clearing a block stream. It starts slow, and then suddenly the water flows freely. And when you combine this method with the evening spoon, the internal nourishment with external stimulation, something remarkable happens. One treats the inside, the other the surface and deeper tissues. Together, they form a kind of gentle pressure from both directions, encouraging blood to move, tissues to soften, sensation to return. I've seen this combo, olive oil and lemon inside, castor oil outside, restore more than just erections. It restores dignity, intimacy, a man's sense of self. So when you look at that spoonful before bed and the warm oil you massage into your body, don't see them as old-fashioned tricks. See them as what they truly are: a message to your body, a reminder, a whisper that says, "You're still alive down there, and I'm ready for you to wake back up." In a moment, I'll show you exactly how to apply both methods properly. I'll also tell you about one patient whose transformation brought tears to his wife's eyes, and the one mistake men often make that keeps them from seeing results. Because if you're going to do this, I want you to do it right. Let's talk about what that looks like next. So how do you apply this? Start with the evening spoon. 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, a small pinch of baking soda, and the juice from half a fresh lemon in a small glass of warm water. Stir it well and drink it slowly about 30 minutes before bed. This allows your body to absorb the nutrients and begin recalibrating blood chemistry while you sleep. For the castor oil method, warm a tablespoon of castor oil gently, never too hot, and massage it into your lower abdomen, inner thighs, and groin area. Focus on slow, circular motions. After application, place a warm compress over the area and relax for at least 20 minutes. Do this 3 to 4 nights a week. Some men start with every other night. What matters most is consistency. Let me tell you about Martin. He was 75, divorced, and had quietly stopped dating because, in his words, there wasn't much to offer. After just 3 weeks of these 2 methods, he came back into my office and said, I don't know if I'm falling in love again or if it's just that I finally feel like me. He'd reconnected with an old friend, and for the first time in a decade, he was able to enjoy intimacy without fear or frustration. Another man, Richard, showed me his blood pressure log. Not only had he begun waking with firmer erections, but his numbers had normalized. That's not just a win for the bedroom. That's a win for his heart. Now, common mistakes? 1. Skipping days. These methods work best when used regularly. It's not a race, it's a rhythm. 2. Using low-quality ingredients. Your body deserves the real thing. Extra virgin olive oil, organic castor oil, fresh lemon. Purity matters. 3. Rushing. Healing isn't about speed. It's about signaling safety to your system, consistently and calmly. So here's what I want you to remember. You're not too old. You're not broken. Your body just needs the right invitation to return to form. If you want more natural methods like this video, subscribe to the channel and comment one so I know you're with me. And let me know where you're watching from. I read everyone. You're not alone in this. In the next chapter of your life, it could be your strongest yet. Dr. Edward, signing off for now. I'll see you in the next one.